Saz, this is BEG with another POE 2 video, and I'm going to go over my level 96 Invoker, which has accomplished pretty much everything and is probably going to get nerfed. Honestly, it's a pretty absurd build. You saw the damage respec versions and the fair versions of my fights against the Arbiter there, and I have a couple of things that can scale much further on this build still, although trying to replicate this build will be difficult. This isn't meant to be a guide, this is meant to be a showcase. The reasoning being is that this build very well may be nerfed very shortly, within the next week or next couple of days even. However, I do want to share kind of my insight on this and show you everything I've done. So, first thing I've done is I took my 23 Divine Ingenuity and I corrupted it. It went from 73% increased bonuses to 89%. So that was extremely lucky. It's probably worth like 140. Part of the reason why this build isn't super replicatable. I also did get a lucky corrupt on my Hand of Wisdom in action. Now, you may have noticed during my fights that my mana has gone down, or was going down very quickly. I just want to show you this build has something of an infinite feedback loop, but not enough, well, mana and mana regeneration and other utility in order to actually maintain it. Here is the little aspects that are causing this. First of all, we have Cast on Crit, and with Cast on Crit, we have Eye of Winter, and this is the main reason. So Eye of Winter is here to give us critical weakness, which gives base crit chance up to plus 10% at 0.5 at a time. This synergizes really well with our very high crit staff, plus we get 1% more crit on the tree. So with all of this combined, we have a base crit of over 25%. This scales up to nearly 100% with all of the skill tree. The other aspects that make this work are Tempest Bell. Tempest Bell, believe it or not, can be hit by Eye of Winter. And on the Cast on Crit as well, currently I have Controlled Destruction, which turns out to be completely necessary, or you run out even faster. It's literally an infinite feedback loop if you do not run Controlled Destruction. And then you will also run Inspiration. I'm literally doing everything I can to keep this, and I'm even running another spell to kind of stagger it in the form of Sniper's Mark. And on top of that, I'm running low level versions, the lowest possible of Eye of Winter, and either the lowest level or pretty close of Sniper's Mark. 9 is the lowest level uncut that I had currently available. But this kind of combination is incredible. And Sniper's Mark generates power charges for us because we have the ability to turn our frenzy charges into power charges with, of course, resonance. So what ends up happening is I throw the bell down, I start hitting. I hit with my Ice Strike, I hit with my Charge Staff. I get my 4 combo up, I drop my Tempest Spell. I'm already shooting out tons of Eye of Winters. The Eye of Winters, prior to Controlled Destruction, would also crit, because my crit chance without Controlled Destruction, it's still reasonably high. 34, yeah, almost 35%. And with the extra 10% base crit on top of that, it reaches much higher, kind of scaling off its own critical weakness. So then Eye of Winter comes out and it hits Tempest Spell. And now, instead of hitting Tempest Spell twice per second, we are hitting it with all of the Eye of Winters that basically come out all at once from our multiple sources of crit with Ice Strike, Tempest Spell, and Charge Staff. And those previously would start proccing even more Eye of Winters to come out until we ran out of mana. I've managed to slow it down a little bit because of Controlled Destruction, but this results in the bell completely being destroyed instantly, and so that means we get 25 hits of the bell literally in a flash, like a moment. As soon as I start getting the loop going, mana goes down, bell disappears, I have to re-hit 4 times to get another bell, and then it happens again. So you instantly get the shockwave damage of 211% attack damage, which works out to be fairly significant. Without any buffs up, almost 20k, and with buffs up, it's going to be significantly more than that, by the way. And that's also not accounting for Immolate, which I have with it, or Execute for when they're on low health, and those are the only 2 damage. Oh, I have Rage as well. But when you start triggering that, you get all 25 hits for whatever your average damage amount is, and it works out to be a lot of damage basically instantly. So even without the buffs, and I would say with all of the different damage buffs and whatnot we have conditionally, probably closer to 40k. So you're probably looking at literally just a million damage instantly with the bell, and that's not counting Immolate or Execute, which scales that up very significantly. So yeah, probably once you get to the lower part of health, and once you get Immolate up, you're probably looking at something more along the lines of like 2 million in an instant. So the damage is very high. As far as the actual setup for skills, got Ice Strike with Martial Tempo, Primal Armament, Conk Effect, Close Combat, and Deep Freeze for bosses. This is the main change. I'm not going to go over the skills in too much detail because there isn't too much to go over. Of course, a shout out to Baylor Mage for kind of figuring out a very elegant way to deal with the Double Herald. I previously thought I would have to just get a staff with super high tier flat lightning and flat cold so that they would both get the added flat elemental damage to them and then proc each other. But in fact, you can run lightning infusion with conduction on Herald of Ice, as well as cold infusion and glaciation on Herald of Thunder. So that kind of shifts the damage to the opposite type, allowing Herald of Thunder to freeze and Herald of Ice to shock very easily. Very good for clear. That's the main clear setup. I've talked a lot about Wind Dancer and Ghost Dance in my previous videos. You can check those out if you want to hear more about that. I'm no longer running Charge Infusion because I simply do not need it, and it would actively take up a slot that I need for something else. I can reach near 100% just from the critical weakness. I think I work out to like 87% crit for the most part once I have all of those stacks up. So having Charge Infusion is kind of pointless and would in fact just drain my mana faster, making my DPS actually lower. The more you get mana figured out on this, the higher your damage can be. As you saw in the fair version of the Arbiter 4 fight that I did, I ran out of mana towards the end and ran out of mana flasks because I literally have to just spam my mana flasks. And that is with over 1500 mana and 211 mana recovery per second. That is kind of the important parts of the skills. Don't need to go over too much else. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. The skill tree has not changed considerably except for the pathing, so now I'm coming down here to get Subterfuge Mask. But there are a few very notable changes, and the first one I should talk about, I'm no longer running Protect Me from Harm, and I'm instead running Acrobatics. Acrobatics is quite good. I feel like it's about as good as and Protect Me from Harm. It's difficult to exactly put a number on it, but they feel roughly equivalent to a certain point. However, Acrobatics allows you to become a lot more durable against on-death effects. The most prominent on-death effect that you're going to deal with is the little circle explosions, the different elemental ones you have, and those mostly kill you by having a lot of them all spawn at once. You kill a pack of rare monsters or magic monsters that hit them, and you get like 7-8 of them going off at once. If you have Acrobatics and you have a bunch of evasion, Acrobatics allow those count as hits. So you're able to dodge a decent portion of them. So individually they only do like maybe 800 or so damage if you have 75 resists. However, if you get hit with like 6 or 8 of them, it's going to kill almost all characters. With Acrobatics, you could simply get hit by a much smaller percentage of them. You might only get hit by like 2 out of those, and then you're taking 1600 damage for standing on the on-death effect. So Acrobatics is very good in that regard. So that exchange has been made, and I decided I did not need Unbound Avatar for the damage, so I'm simply going I Am the Thunder. We now create Shocked Ground and Chilled Ground, which gives a bunch of extra damage to Eye of Winter, which doesn't matter. We're not really scaling that, but we are putting out so many Eye of Winters per second. So keep in mind, the mana cost for Eye of Winter, 33, and yet it literally drains us to 0 instantly. So we are committing a huge amount of, I don't know exactly how many, but something like 30 Eye of Winters we're putting out in an instant. And those are going to get the 2 ground effects, and that each of them is going to give them like 50% more damage, I believe. something like that. Yeah, 50% more damage. So very big. Other major change, Chaos Inoculation. A lot of people are running Chaos Inoculation for a lot of reasons. I have exactly one reason I'm running Chaos Inoculation, and that is because of ingenuity. I simply did not want to waste a suffix on my rings on Chaos Resist, and in fact, I'm significantly more durable without Chaos Inoculation going back to Hybrid and using the Atziri's helmet. I have a health pool that's 75-ish% higher than this 4,488. I don't really die either way. I have a grand total deaths across, I have 155 deaths in /played, 14 days, 5 hours. Now, about 1 day or 1.5 days of that, probably AFK time. I do spend a lot of time logged in, but not playing. But it's still about 300 hours playtime. And in that time, I've only died 155 times, and most of that was in the first 34 or so hours which I spent in the campaign. About a third of that was, and a lot of that since then has been on bosses. I actually have not died since level 92 in a way that I did not know I was going to die ahead of time, with 2 exceptions. I died in 2 Citadels while streaming simply because I was not taking it seriously, was on very hard rolled maps, and looked over at chat for a little bit too long. Several seconds I was reading chat, thinking I didn't have to look at my screen, and it got me killed. But outside of those 2 deaths, all of my deaths have come to learning pinnacle bosses or testing, basically stress testing the build right after a level. So at level 94, I, for instance, would purposely stand in on death effects to see how many it would take to kill me. The answer was 6. 6 total at the time killed me, but that was on a crit map, so I possibly got crit by some of them. Anyway, it does make you immune to all ritual things, I think, except maybe the blood wave, which might do physical, but I believe all the other ritual mechanics are chaos damage, and it also makes you immune to a couple of the other on-death effects, or rather not the on-death effects, but the little trees that shoot the chaos dots out at you. Now, I've gotten used to dodging those anyway, since before I took CI, but it is nice to not have to worry about that, and Ritual has those spawn as well in one of its forms, so I don't have to dodge around a lot because of that. Very nice. And lastly, Eternal Youth, which allows us to use our life flask to regain energy shield at the cost of not having energy shield recharge. Nice thing about this, I didn't want to invest in energy shield recharge anyway, and honestly, life flask is giving a high enough percentage of our fairly low energy shield pool relatively that I don't think it matters all that much. I think it's probably just good enough to use Eternal Youth. Feels really good. I've been doing it for, from level 95 to 96, and I didn't die any time at all during that time, so felt great to me. As far as other things, I currently have Harmonic Generator anointed. I think Magnitude of Shock is very good. We're critting pretty much constantly, so we're getting really fast shocks off with this. Also, in combination with this jewel, get a little extra Magnitude of Shock on top of that. And this is simply too many points away to get Unbound Forces for that extra Magnitude of Shock, although that would be nice too because that's another 45%. Now, if I'm not doing specifically the Arbiter, I remove Deep Freeze and put on Overcharge as my 5th link. And I use all the same links that I used to use. Overcharge just gives 75% increased magnitude of shocks in exchange for less shock duration, but we are going to be reshocking pretty much every attack. Right. Gear, still need Freeze Immune. Freeze is going to be the one thing that really can kill us, so you need a Thawing Charm. I'm using the same staff I've been using for quite some time. It's very good. I bought it originally for 15 div. Months become popular, so it's probably more expensive now. And it's just a lot of damage, incredible crit rate, and it's got crit damage bonus. It's overall very solid, and I recently corrupted it because I got a similar staff, and as a result, I hit 17 to 26 extra cold damage. So that's going to help with freeze, do a little higher damage. I am currently using a new helmet as well. The reasoning being, if I use the helmet I was using before, which is Atziri's Disdain, the line 20% of damage taken bypasses energy shield. As you'll see, if I put this on, my energy shield pops up to almost 6,000. However, because we have 1 life, any hit will literally kill us because of the bypass. So I'm not currently using that. One budget option I'd like to point out as well, instead of just having a really jacked amulet, if you can fix your resistances elsewhere, I do think something like an Everlasting Gaze would be pretty solid. You'll get a decent amount of energy shield that way, but if I do that, then I lose some of my stat requirements and would have to move things around. So you have to get creative with it, basically, if you do that. But that will also help with mana issues on top of that. Mana is something I prioritized. I have mana regen on all of my rings and flat mana on this one. Flat life on this one is the only useless stat, but it's not completely useless. It gives me a little extra stun threshold and ailment threshold because that seems to still work with your base life even if you have chaos inoculation. Not sure if that's a bug, but if that weren't the case, I'd be getting stunned every time I was hit by a physical hit, which doesn't seem to be the case. So I believe that is how it works. I've got this really nice Hand of Wisdom in action, and it's really nice because I got an improvement on it because of a corrupt. So it's 1 to 11 damage instead of 1 to 10 for 10 intelligence. You may notice I'm not really hard stacking attributes. I certainly do have all attributes here, and with my other Devastation for area clearing, sometimes if I'm doing a lot of breaches, I'll run this amulet instead. I have a bunch of all attributes there. I have intelligence on both of my rings to continue to scale, but and then I have dex, I believe, on my body armor and boots. And of course, Hand of Wisdom and action themselves give extra dex and int. But I'm not super hard stacking. I'm not going kind of all in on the attribute stacking. I have 225 dex and 313 int. When I switch this around, it's a little bit higher. And you can also see that when I switch these amulets, DPS goes up from 162k to 171, almost 172k. So the extra attributes plus the damage anoint definitely make a difference. Okay, finally, not finally. Guess I never explained this, but the 2 reasons I'm running the tribal mask. One, subterfuge. So by running this kind of hybrid setup, I guess I could run just an ES one and get a bit higher, but I want to make sure that I have enough evasion, and I actually get more evasion this way. I get less energy shield, but I want to make sure acrobatics is up pretty consistently. And as you can see, even with my buffs and everything, I still have just almost 8,400 evasion. That's not quite as high as I'd like it. I'd like at least around 10k. So the hybrid one definitely helps get me there a little bit quicker, a little bit better. Body armor, this is the same body armor I've been using for ages now. I crafted it myself. It's quite good. I have had an upgrade, but I lost it to a tragic corruption accident. I had a just under 1,300 evasion and over 500 energy shield body armor with even higher stun threshold set up and ready to go, and I went to corrupt it and I bricked it. So in fact, I think I still have it, and I didn't brick it. It's still quite good, but I lost one of my rolls. I lost the hybrid roll for a tier 12 life roll, 197 life. Oh, it didn't have better stun threshold, although maybe it re-rolled that. I might be misremembering. But yeah, this has 197 life with 1145 evasion and 434 energy shield. Nobody wants to buy it still, though. Might have to keep lowering the price. Unfortunate. Mana Flask and Life Flask, pretty much the same ones I've had forever, except I corrupted them. I gained some quality on this one, lost some quality on this one. No big deal. And that is everything of note. I finally will show you my tree stuff. I did finish up all of my expedition stuff. I finished that yesterday and today while I was hitting level 96. I was then doing, I've had all of my breach for a long time, and of course I got all the Arbiter stuff. Next I'm going to work on both Ritual and Delirium at the same time. I failed both of my first attempts at getting my points for each of them. I got confused by the one of the mechanics, I think it was, yes, in the Breach, it phases and you go into a maze and there's darkness that does damage over time, and I got confused in the mage and ended up dying to that. And then I actually made a terrible mistake in Delirium in the Simulacrum. I was almost to the end of it and I was in a really small room, and I tried to like roll into a corner so I could put my bell in front of me and kind of just burst down the whole room at once. I got stuck on some mobs and then I got stunned and then I died. So both of those attempts were failures. I'm really close to another Simulacrum. Who knows how close I am? I might just end up selling some of my fragments now that I have my Arbiter done. I have a bunch of extra fragments. I've run Arbiter now. On stream, I've run Arbiter something like, I think it was 12-ish times, and I've run it off stream quite a lot of times too now, so I've probably done, and I've got all of my points. So I think I'm good with running the Arbiter. I feel like I'm pretty good at the fight now. You saw in my fair clip that I am able to work with the mechanics. I did both of the hard phases, no problem. So I do believe that Arbiter should be, fine, and I'll just sell some stuff and go forward. I'll just buy the ritual fragments, finish this off. I should be able to make, like 50, 60 divine that way pretty quick. All right. Anyway, that is the update. I expect this build to be nerfed. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming. I'll be streaming on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune in for that. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, whatever, or become a channel member if you want to show up to my streams and get some cool like flare thing that I have in there. I'll probably be doing some more of those up. I'll see you next time. Bye.